Alright, so that's where we're going. We're catching the outflow from the narrows there, which will really help. Lots and lots of seals. You can see their shiny backs on that second rock as well. I didn't see them the first time. Alright. 2200 revs, just purring along. 2700 revs is our normal cruising engine speed. But I'm doing 6 knots here with the current from the narrows back there and the outgoing tide. So I don't need to waste gas by going any faster than that. That's just fine. What little wind there is with me, so there's no point putting the sails up. On we go. Interesting rock here on Saturna. There's like a couple of natural pathways there right down to the water. The second one up there if you want to jump off the cliff and come back on that one. I wonder if people have ever used it for that. Probably. I see there's a cottage up there. Not going quite as fast, 5 knots now. We've lost the advantage of the current from the passage back there. We still got the outgoing tide though. So I'm barely doing 2200 revs. That's the sweet spot. That's the nice thrumming sound, not obnoxious, and gets me almost to hull speed and uses minimal fuel, so I'm quite happy with that. We'll be leaving Saturna soon. Just heading for this gap here between Pender and Blunder Island on the left there, something like that. Very, very calm. As usual, the forecast this morning were for all kinds of winds, 6 knots, 8 knots, from the west, from the south. All would have been good, and instead there's almost nothing. This is that same stretch where I was last year doing 6.7 knots in the wind coming off the cliffs. I realize now that a couple of those were probably due to tide and current. But still, it was good sailing as well. By the way, all these speeds I give here are speed over the ground. This comes from my GPS program, not from any kind of a monitor on the boat. So it's always speed over the ground, which makes a huge difference. That's all that matters in the end. You can be doing 10 knots against a 10 knot current. You're basically doing nothing. And it makes a huge difference to actually catch these currents. If I want to do 5 knots in the boat, that's what the wind is doing or the engine is doing. With a 2 knot current, I'm doing 7 knots. With a 2 knot current against me, I'm doing 3 knots. So it's 133% more effective to use the currents and tides to help you than to try to fight them. I'm really realizing that now. Tides and currents moves up in my top 5 things to think about when doing a voyage to number 2, I guess. Number 1 is keeping the boat afloat and working. Alright, we're only about 10 miles from Sydney now. I could be there before even noon. Let's see how it goes. Just coming through this little passage here between that little island and Pender. See there are some seals on the rock there. Guess they like to warm themselves after a cold, wet night. That's that morning sunshine. And that's the actual southern tip of Pender there with the lighthouse. And I'll be heading over that way, and Sydney's kind of just beyond that, about 10 miles now. We left at 8:30, it's now 9:30. I remember the water here from when I was sailing. It can get very, very churned up with different tides meeting from that way and that way and that way and behind me. Maybe there's actually some wind here. We'll see how it goes. So we came around the point there, and finally there's some wind. No, lovely wind, but it's coming straight from where I want to go to. And it's cold, and there's all of this bad chop in here, again mostly caused by currents and tide. The low tide's a bit earlier down here, coming up in an hour or so. We've got some churned up water. I wouldn't want to be sailing in this. We'll see if this chop ends, and when I get past the end of Pender here, there might be a change in the wind direction as we get the wind coming from between Pender and Moresby Island there. But for now, we're just going to power on through it. There's a ship coming as well. Again, strange to see a ship in there. You would never see ships in here 25, 30 years ago when I first sailed in these waters. They stayed well out of the islands here. They stuck to the main channel there between the San Juans. But now they cut through Canada for some reason. Alright. Water's calming down a little bit. We're through that bit of chop there. Let's see what happens a bit further ahead. So even with the wind and these waves against us, the current is also now carrying us too. We're doing 6 knots. I'd only be doing 4.5 with the engine settings I currently have. So that's really good. The falling tide, I'm surprised it's going this way. We're now going almost west. But that's good. I guess it depends. It's coming up the channel. Well, it's coming down the channel from, I don't know what it's doing, but it's helping me anyway. Just went below to get my gloves and my thing of mixed nuts there. It's actually cold. This will be the first time I always carry these gloves with me. They're my cycling gloves. And I've never had to wear them yet in any of my sailing, going right back to January. But right now I do feel like I need to wear them. Another reason not to put the sails up and just run the old engine. It's difficult to sail when you're wearing gloves. If you're not wearing gloves, your hands get cold and then you have trouble with the ropes. And that can cascade into all kinds of trouble. So we're just going to power on in. 6.4 knots. That current's still pushing me along here. I'm so glad I set off early in the morning. I've had these currents helping me all the way rather than being against me, which I presume will happen when the current changes very, very soon in the next hour or so. It makes all the difference in the world. Would have doubled the time of this trip, doubled my use of gas. As it is, we're just humming along, thrumming along at 2300 revs, doing 6.4 knots. The engine's just sipping that diesel like a fine Scotch whiskey. 20 past 11 and I'm back at my favorite anchorage just off Sydney. There's my marina there. I got here so fast with the winds and currents. I'm right here at the just after the turn of the bottom of the tide, so I've got to wait 2 hours before the water's deep enough for me to get my boat in. I'd forgotten all about that. I thought it would take at least 4 or 5 hours to get here. So 3 hours, 3 days to get up there and 3 hours to get back. Not that any of that time or speed really matters. It's just about being out there and enjoying the peace and quiet and leisurely way of things. So that was a fun run this morning. And that's where we came from. I believe that's Saturna, where you can see that brown spot there. So, quite the day. Every day is very, very different. I was totally unexpected to be going that fast. Right to the end there I was doing 6 knots while the engine was only barely turning over at 2200 revs. Okay, lots to do here before going in. It's just as well. I have to take off my sails, put out my fenders, get out my mooring lines, and just clean up, clean and tidy, have a cup of coffee, enjoy the morning sunshine. A good start to the day.